All right, everybody, welcome back to the Lone Star Labor Pod. We missed you last week when we were out for Memorial Day, but we are back with a brand new episode. And more importantly, whatever platform you're listening on right now, pause the episode and then like and subscribe so that you get updates about when we post new things, and then listen to the episode, but also follow us on everything else at Texas AFL-CIO.
Well, it's your way to be plugged into the ongoing news and information. You know, there's so many different ways people get information. We have our daily email, we have our website, we have our Twitter, we have our Facebook, we have our Instagram. What our job is to get the word about what's happening in the labor movement to people who are interested in the way that makes the most sense to them. I think this podcast is a really good way to do it. In order to do that, it's real easy to just like it, follow it, and listen to it. So we encourage you to do that.
Yeah, this will be the first week that the episodes are also posted to our YouTube and our Facebook with the video content. I know that.
Well, you didn't tell me that. I would have had my hair done. I mean, Lord.
I thought that you'd be better if you were fresh, the element of surprise is important. So definitely like our video content. The more that you interact with our stuff, the more it'll pop up because of algorithms. So and we have a really cool episode for you guys today.
Great. All right, well, let's get to it.
Good morning, Rick. Welcome back. How are you?
Morning, Madison. Welcome back to you. We took last week off as the Memorial Day holiday, or at least we took it off from the Lone Star Labor Pod. Number of our folks were down in Uvalde serving food to the community down there, and I think what was a really moving and important place for our folks to be. A lot of union members affected and their families, the whole community affected there, and so it was a Labor Day break, but a number of folks from the Texas AFL-CIO were serving the community that day. But yeah, it's been, and then what have you been up to for the last week or so that we need to know about?
Recovering from the runoff elections, trying to figure out the game plan for our digital program for the rest of the year. But I feel like I got to exhale a little bit last week, and I'm happy to be back on the pod. We have some exciting stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks. We'll have some really good guests.
We do. I think one of the things that's happened since we last talked is the wave of union organizing victories and Starbucks, including the first one here in Austin at 45th and Lamar, won their election. And I think that sent reverberations through the state as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we say this every week, it seems like, but there's never a shortage of need for good news. And I personally have given Starbucks an embarrassing amount of my money over the last decade of my life. So I'm very excited to have one, and they're really close to our office actually. So this is good news for me and bad news for me also, because there. And there is actually more upcoming Starbucks votes this month. So hopefully we'll have more victories to celebrate. We've got the UT campus store on Friday, actually, on my birthday. So guys, let's pull one out for the Gem guys.
Absolutely.
And then the San Antonio 410 store on the 14th, and then the San Antonio St. Mary store on off of Interstate 35 on the 21st. So hopefully our barista friends will have a lot to celebrate, and hopefully we'll get to talk to one of their partners soon.
Yeah, I've been talking to the folks from that campaign, and I think they're interested in coming and sharing their stories. So we'll definitely have that coming up in the next couple of weeks for sure.
Well, I mean, who wouldn't want to come on the Lone Star Labor?
That's what I'm saying. It's a big moment.
Our guest list is adding up. We're getting.
It is actually. It is. But that one we'll have a special coffee edition of the Lone Star Labor Pod.
Yeah, we should get really caffeinated before, and it'll just be a super energetic episode.
Yes. All right. Well, then let's get to our guest.
Yeah.
All right. Hold on one second. I actually cut. I got to get this call. This is Liz Schuler.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we're really excited this week because, Madison, we have a guest with us that is actually, we were talking about before, is our first guest that actually has transcended the gulf between Labor Live at 5 and the Lone Star Labor Pod, and has appeared on both as of this morning. She is one of the most dynamic union leaders in the state of Texas. She is the president of the San Antonio Alliance, American Federation of Teachers, and her name is Alejandra Lopez. And Alejandra, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective with us this morning.
Happy to be here, Rick.
That's awesome. And can I first introduce you to Madison? I mean, I know that you all.
We've only met over
know,
email. I'm super excited that you're here.
It's great to be here, Madison.
That's great. So, so Alejandra, first tell us a little bit about your local and how you fit into the labor movement in San Antonio.
Sure. So our local, the San Antonio Alliance of Teachers and Support Personnel, represent all non-administrative staff members in San Antonio ISD. So, many folks, I'm sure, listening to the podcast will be familiar with the very fractured nature of school districts here in San Antonio. We have 17 independent school districts within our county, very much cut along racial and class lines, essentially a legacy from segregation and redlining. And our district operates in the urban core, so we are overwhelmingly students of color from working class communities of color, and our members are the custodians, the food service workers, the bus drivers, the teachers, the instructional assistants that work with and serve our community.
Yeah, that's right in the fulcrum of so many things. And, just the challenges that have been laid at the feet of those kids and at the folks who work in in that district, from just the chronic underfunding, and then you mix in the pandemic, and all the stress that places on everything. And now, and then you have the state leadership, which is trying to make things harder by draining resources from the schools, and telling you what what you're going to get in trouble for mentioning about talking about the truth. And so that's the sea that we swim in. And then, unfortunately, recently we had another pretty dramatic addition to that level of challenges, which is what happened in Uvalde. And how are your members and how are the students coping with that in San Antonio?
It is incredibly challenging, Rick, and I think you, really summed up what it has been like to work in education over the past several years, right? We are talking about compounding crises that we operate in, from a lack of funding and support from, the state government and the federal government, to be honest, to the attacks that educators have had to experience at the hands of Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick. And now we have the incredibly tragic and devastating, shooting in Uvalde. So, it has been a incredibly difficult couple of years for everyone in education. And we are seeing the effects of that as we see headline after headline of educators, considering leaving the profession and actually leaving the profession. Texas AFT, our affiliate, did a survey earlier this year that found that 66% of educators are considering leaving the classroom. And when I speak to educators in this situation, what's really, really sad is that every single one of them will say how much they love the work that they do, how much they love their students, the community that they work with. It is never the students, and it is always everything else at the hands of adults, right? That make this work so hard.
That's so perverse. It's just so perverse when you stop and think about it. Just that relationship between the teacher and the student, and how sacred that is, and just how everything should be geared towards lifting that relationship and supporting that relationship and giving that relationship the food that it needs to grow. and yet we do the opposite in this state, and that must just really be frustrating for you and your members.
It is, and I think about just every single challenge along the way these past 2 years that our local has been at the forefront of, when it comes to advocating for COVID safety, advocating for resources. We have just been met with barrier after barrier because of, politicians like Governor Abbott. And this most recent, tragedy in Uvalde is no exception, right? I mean, to hear the governor, throwing out absolutely ludicrous ideas of how we can, keep our students safe. He has never supported us. There is no, demonstration of the fact that he actually cares about the lives of our educators or the lives of our students, particularly our Black and Brown students, the ones that we serve in our district. So, really, he has no place to be out there talking about what we need. We are the only ones that know what we need. We know what we need, our students, our parents, our community members.
Well, one of the things that's, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, well, you mentioned that the Alliance has been on the forefront of that. And you also mentioned that your union represents more than just teachers, the support staff at schools that don't often get brought up in conversations about education, like bus drivers and food workers and the people that we really need to keep our schools running, but they're not always mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about how your union and the Alliance lifts those workers up and has kind of helped them to have that voice in this conversation, especially like over the last couple of years where we're seeing those workers continually be put on the front lines of danger with the pandemic and now a gun violence epidemic?
Absolutely. Our core mantra in our local is nothing about us without us, which means that every single decision that is being made in our school district should be done in collaboration and really center the voice of our workers, our students, and their families. And this goes from the very beginning of the pandemic as our local, organized for hazard pay for our frontline workers, our food service workers, our custodians who were having to go into the buildings when our professional staff was able to work from home. We ran a campaign last year around uniforms, right? I mean, we know that that is an incredibly important part of having dignity on the job for our classified workers. And most recently, we've been organizing around an ESSER stakeholder committee in our district. We know that districts got millions of dollars of ESSER funds. However, many districts, created plans to spend those funds without including the voices of the union and the workers that they represent. And so we now in our district have an ESSER stakeholder committee spearheaded by our school board ally, Sarah Sorensen, and we've made sure that the union representation on that stakeholder committee has representation from food service and from our support staff. So that way, it's not us as teachers talking for them, it's them centering their needs and what is impactful in their roles.
Yeah, that takes a lot of commitment to organizing to run the situation like that. And the one thing I've been really struck by in the wake of Uvalde is the role that your union, the teachers union, and when I say your, I mean the state as well as the local folks, have played in kind of illustrating to people how this is, number one, how we need to be in solidarity with the people of Uvalde, but number two, how gun violence is a workplace issue, and how gun violence is a social issue, and how gun violence is a community issue. And the voice that your union has spoken with has been so loud and clear. Can you talk about how that came to be and what what you see as the role of the union in addressing the gun violence?
Absolutely. And I do want to, recognize the state leadership of Texas AFT, our president, Zeph Capo, and our secretary treasurer, Ray McMurray have done, and the entire team at Texas AFT have really shown what it means to move through the grief and the anger that you feel when situations like this arise to action, right? And so they were able to quickly mobilize around the NRA convention in Houston. I mean, just It's absolutely disgusting that the NRA convention, decided to go forward, but we know that is a tactic of theirs, right? They just keep on moving. But they were not, they had to reckon with a movement against them. And so our national AFT president, Randy Weingarten, flew down to Houston, and they mobilized the voices that need to be heard in a time like this, the voices of our educators who have to face this reality, every day when they go to work, right? And I mean, for many of us in the classroom, we have to compartmentalize. We have to push this to the side, anytime it kind of shows up, we just really have to focus on the task at hand, which is educating our students. But you can't ignore it, when a situation like Uvalde happens. And then last week they confronted, they went to Senator Cruz's office. I mean, we know that Senator Cruz's, the shirking of the issue here is just a master class in how to, not accept accountability and responsibility for your political positions and your actions. In addition to, circulating a survey throughout our state, because that ultimately is what we do as unions, right? We have to reflect, the thoughts and concerns of our members, and Texas AFD has done an amazing job at that during an incredibly difficult time.
Yeah, it's just, has there been much pushback from folks who, historically in the labor movement, there's been a strain of conversation that, that something like guns isn't a labor issue. How do you articulate that? How do you formulate that question?
I think, for us, our local believes really strongly that, we need to be at the forefront of any issue that affects our members and our community, right? So our local is, yes, of course, about, working with and organizing our members, but we actually move beyond that. We have an education justice coalition where we've brought together other labor unions, community organizations, parents, and students to talk about what issues are affecting us as a community. And this is definitely one of them. And I think, at the moment, right, we are really focusing on what are actions that are actually going to have an impact. And so in our consultation process with our school district, we have focused on things that we know the research is really clear actually make a difference in an active shooter situation. Really simple things like having doors that lock. You would be absolutely, shocked to know how many school districts, have rooms that house, students and staff that don't have locks on them, right? That you can't actually lock in an emergency. So we've been focusing on things that we know are in the, the really unfortunate circumstance that we hope we never live through, the things that actually make a difference, which, can you lock your door? Are your substitute teachers trained to, in an emergency situation? Do they have a key that locks their door? Are there first aid kits in the classroom? These are all things that when we get down to it would actually make a difference in this, in a terrible situation like this. And so we don't need, politicians out there with things that are just being thrown out to distract and to really, shirk the responsibility that they have.
Yeah. So do most of your members want to be able to carry guns in class? Like, I know that's Ted Cruz's answer is to arm all the teachers. Is that pretty much what your kindergarten and first grade teachers want to be doing?
Again, the evidence is
I can't
so
even
clear.
imagine where that comes from.
Well, and Texas AFT, other organizations have surveyed. We don't even have to guess. We have the data that shows that not just do educators not want to be armed, but the community doesn't want that either, right? They know what a teacher's job is, and it is to teach. They know what a custodian's job is, what a food service worker's job is, and none of those should require any kind of, being armed at all.
What a world we live in.
Yeah.
What do you think, Madison?
I mean, I am so saddened by the world that we're living in and how, we're seeing the state leadership handle this, but I am so grateful for the leadership that the teachers and, AFT and the Alliance have really shown in the last few weeks and in general, but having that clear voice that says enough is enough. And like our workers, our students, our communities, they deserve to be safe as really important. So I'm glad that you guys are in that fight, and I'm glad to be in it with you guys. I am wondering, for our members that are listening to this when it airs later today, how can we support you? How can we support educators in general, but especially around the gun violence issue? Like what do you guys need from us?
Thanks, Madison. I really appreciate the question. And I mean, I think we need to come together and hold our leaders accountable, right? I mean, I think, you know, as an educator, as someone who works, you know, closely with history teachers, with, you know, government teachers, this is a uniquely American problem, right? We do not, this level of violence does not happen in other countries, right? And it is because leaders in other countries have taken the necessary steps to enact gun control legislation, right? And so, you know, now is the time to really come together and hold our leaders accountable. We have elections coming up in November, right? We cannot have politicians say that they support educators, that they support students, when they're not willing to you know, move forward and support legislation that is going to keep this from happening again. And then, of course, there are a number of local actions taking place. There's one happening, a March for Our Lives on June 11th in San Antonio. And so we do hope that people will join, you know, local actions that show our elected officials, that show our community that, like you said, enough is enough, and it's time to really, you know, take action that's actually going to save lives.
Yeah, we'll share the information about that March when we post the episode. Thank you for being here with us. We know that you've got a million things going on, and we're so grateful for your voice and your support of the labor movement. Really, what you do is amazing.
Yeah, Alejandra, we are so lifted every time we get to talk to you. So thank you for sharing your time and your vision. And it's just, it's so maddening. And I can only imagine just to be on the front lines of dealing with this and to have to wade through what you get from our state leadership. And so I think what we definitely need to do is make some changes there. So I think we got a lot of work to do, but for now we'll be content with sharing the word and sharing your vision, and thanking you for joining us. And we really appreciate it. We'll see you down the road, I'm sure.
Thank you both. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alejandra.
Wow, that was a really powerful interview with Alejandra. I'm so grateful that she was able to talk to us.
I love listening to her. She has such a broad vision of of the work, but it's so connected to the needs of the members that's a really powerful combination.
Yeah, I mean, like we were talking about, like just the fact that they're asking for such simple things like doors that lock, and like to have first aid kits in classrooms is deeply sad.
Yes, it
But,
is.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, if the needs are so basic, it's kind of insane that there's any opposition at all to meeting them. But I'm
that's the world we live in.
Yeah, continuing to fight that fight.
Yeah.
Well,
and so we do. So Madison, what do we got coming up that we have to look forward to?
well, like I said earlier, we do have a couple more Starbucks votes this month, so hopefully there will just be solidarity brewing throughout the state.
Ooh, I saw what you did there. That was good.
It is Pride Month, so we are celebrating our LGBT members and uplifting those stories. And we just saw a really great profile of one of our members, Linda Morales, that was about her union service and her life as an LGBT organizer, and that was really cool. So
let's get her to come on the pod.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We shared that link on our social media, but you can check it out, and you should definitely follow us on everything, because I keep forgetting to plug our social media, but you should definitely Texas AFL-CIO on everything.
Got it. And then also this week is going to be historic. We'll probably be coming to you next week from Philadelphia, where Liz Schuler is set to become elected by the body as the first woman president of the National AFL-CIO. And so we'll be there to cast our vote, and there's going to be a whole bunch of issues coming up. So maybe we'll talk next week from there and give folks a real sense of what's going on in that convention.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I know that there's been a lot of buzz about the national convention, and I'm sure that a lot of our friends will be out there. So hopefully we'll get some good sound bites to share with our
Oh
listeners.
yeah, there you go. I'll be on the road reporting live. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, another week gone. Thank you all
Yeah.
for listening to the Lone Star Labor Pod. I know that you missed us last week, but we're glad to be back. And we've got some really exciting things coming up. So whatever platform you're listening on, like and subscribe so that you get updates when we post episodes. And like I said, follow us on our social media at Texas AFL-CIO. We are placing our merchandise orders for the Democratic Convention next month. So we should have some really fun merch stuff to give away and to share soon. So you're not going to want to miss this.
Got it. All right. Well, thanks again, Madison, for all your work to make this possible.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Britt.
it. All right.
All right. Bye, everybody.